When there's something new available to the market, we bring it to the market. We don't do copycat chemicals. We have testers around the world testing the product in different climates. We take our time. We do it slowly. We don't rush things.
Behind the scenes, research and development at DIY Detail.
Hi, I'm Ivan.
I'm Nick.
And this is the DIY Detail Podcast. Today, we're going to give you a sneak peek behind the curtain, however you want to look at it, of how we do R&D, how long it takes, and why we do it this way.
Ivan, you've been doing research and development for a little while now, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, since about 1985, 86.
So how does one do research and development the right way?
There's not a right way, there's not a wrong way. But there are many different ways of doing it. And at DIY Detail, we take our time. We do it slowly. We don't rush things. And rushing things, you can see it by formulas that separate. Now, there are some things that are inevitable to separate. A lot of waxes, they're going to separate, especially a cream or a liquid wax. But take an example, our gold standard compound. You don't need to shake it up. The gold standard polish, you don't need to shake it up. Most of our chemicals, they're shelf stable. The only things that you need to shake up contain graphene. So the quick beads, the 1 year, the 3 year coatings, they need to be shaken up to redistribute the graphene oxide. Other than that, none of our products you need to shake up. So that's one thing. We go for shelf stability, and that takes 6 months to test. So literally it's tested for 6 months to make sure that the formula, when we put it there and when we take it off the shelf, is the same. It works the same. You put the rinseless wash in the bucket, it's going to be fine. Or you put the incredible suds in your foam cannon, it's going to foam whether you shook up the bottle or not. So that's one of the things that we do that makes us take time. The other is we don't do copycat chemicals. Best example of that, we were doing research and development for a microfiber wash. We tried Detail Co's Renaissance. We stopped the R&D. I've never seen a microfiber detergent work as well as that. Therefore, there's no point in us developing a product if something is on the market that is as good as we would want it to be, and that is Detail Co Renaissance. But for other things, we're introducing, or by the time this comes out, we will have had our Type 3 iron remover on the market. It's sometime this week. The Type 3 iron remover, did we need to do it? No. Were we able to do it? Yes. And why did we do it? And the reason why for any of our chemicals is continual improvement. When new raw materials surface, when new manufacturing methods surface, that's when we look back at our formula and go, okay, can we improve this using this new technology? The iron remover is one of them. We've been working on it for close to 2 years now. But the reason we felt the iron remover could be better is we wanted it to be stronger while still being safe. And that is something with a lot of iron removers. You spray them on the surface. Ours, you can let it dry on the surface. It's not going to do anything negative to the vehicle. There are some that you have permanent streaks in the paint, or it damages the plastics or whatever. So we wanted to maintain that safety while increasing the strength and increasing the lubricity, because we teach to use the iron remover with the decontamination towel.
Ivan, I think it's fascinating because I see a lot of new brands coming in, and sometimes we'll have conversations about what it's like to start a brand. And one thing that I've noticed just from our journey is it's difficult to try to climb to the top of the mountain or get close to the top, right? And if you kind of get into that ballpark, wherever you think DIY Detail is, if we're doing well, I think we're doing well, it then is I feel like a unique challenge to quote unquote stay on top, or to stay, at a very high level. And that's where I've learned so much from you, because this has been a new thing for me, starting a business with you and this journey we've been on over the last 4 years or so. And it's the continual R&D, the continual improvement, the foot on the gas pedal that I realized you never coast in business, right? Because when you coast, you die. So can you talk about your philosophy of R&D?
Well, we launched our first product in 2022. And so that was June of 2022. We started the R&D in 2019. So we started working on not just the marketing, but my main focus was working on the products. And that started 3 years before we launched our first product. That is our timeline. That's our cycle for developing products. Some things are easy to develop in the sense that it's a known thing in the industry. We'll use a water spot remover as an example. Ours uses lactic acid, very safe chemical, very safe for the paint. It's not going to damage the paint, etc. there's not a lot of R&D to be done with a water spot remover. There is some, but there's not a lot to do, because basically you're combining an acid with a few surfactants and, you know, a certain percentage of water, obviously, to make it stable. But at that point, there's nothing much there to do. Even though we're, you know, we have our type 2 water spot remover on the market. It's been on the market for about 1.5 years now. I don't even think we announced it as type 2, but we're on our second iteration and we're working on the third. We're working to improve it. But the whole goal of the research and development is to stay ahead, is to, when there's something new available to the market, we bring it to the market. If we can improve what we're doing, we'll improve what we're doing. We have, you know, we're on our fourth iteration of coatings. We had our first coating that was a great coating, but a marketing error because we didn't put a number on it. And the only question we ever received about that coating was, how long does it last? People wanted a number. So then we had our type 1 coatings. Our type 2 coatings were only on the market about, 6 or 8 months? And the reason for that short lapse is we've been working on the type 3 coatings, but we hadn't finished the development on them. But we wanted to get rid of the forever chemicals as soon as possible. So the PFASs in our coatings. And that was a relatively easy evolution from type 1 to type 2. There were some changes there. We introduced the instant bond technology with the type 2 coatings, et cetera, et cetera. But we knew in the background that the type 3 coatings were coming. No one around us knew. But the whole goal there was we were advancing technology once again. And we took a big leap between the type 2 and the type 3, introducing the TOS technology. So that has changed. But these are things that, like you say, the foot's on the pedal to the floor all the time when it comes to research and development for us. There's a lot going on. And I'm juggling usually between 8 and 10 R&D projects at a time. And that involves testing, and we not only test, I'm not the only one doing testing. We have testers around the world testing the product in different climates, in different, regions, et cetera, and that's very important to us as well, because sure, I can test something here in Quebec that works great, but you test it in Utah, you're at a higher elevation, et cetera. It may or may not work in that environment. That's why we have testers in the Middle East. That's why we have testers in Australia. That's why we have testers in California, in Florida, in Canada, a lot of different regions, a lot of different temperatures.
Where do companies, I guess, take shortcuts in the R&D process?
One of the easiest and, most prevalent shortcuts is buy an existing formula, which, there's a lot of companies doing that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Buying an existing proven formula to launch your brand, heck, why not? But, it is, for us, it's a point of pride to have our own products. They're unique to us. They're not copies of anybody else's product. They're not a white label or a relabel. They are our products. They are our formulas. And we spend a lot of time and a lot of money developing those formulas. So, we're inherently proud of them. But at the same time, we know what we're getting into. We know what the R&D is. If you're buying an off-the-shelf formula, do you know what their R&D process was? Do you know how safe it is? Because even if you're buying a formula, if you're buying an off-the-shelf product, the only information you're getting is the SDS sheet. You don't know really what's in it, because the SDS sheet does not tell you the full recipe. It just gives you the parts in the formula that legally we have to divulge for safety reasons. It's a safety data sheet. It's not a recipe.
And when you see these Facebook ads come up or Instagram ads, and it looks so good, and you're like, wow, they made a really good marketing video. Yeah. You realize a lot of these companies are marketing companies. They're not the nerds and they're not the diehard R&D people who live and breathe this stuff. And some of them are, Ivan, but I know this is what you do and think about all the time.
R&D is something, that's, like I said, I've been doing it for 4 decades now for numerous companies, and companies I've been involved with, publicly, and a lot of companies I haven't been involved with publicly. I have a lot of NDAs with a lot of companies because of what I do in terms of R&D. An example, when we're developing a polish, some people, they slap some abrasives, some solvents together, a bit of water, and we've got a polish and it works. Great. For us, when we do the testing, there's a lot of testing involved to make sure that, as an example, you can use the gold standard polish in direct sunlight on a black car, leave it for a couple hours and still wipe it off. It's not going to be an issue. But it takes a lot of effort to get to that point, because you'll have a formula that works great, and then you try it in direct sunlight and it's a disaster. So back to the drawing board. So there's a lot of times when we think we're there, and then one of our testers worldwide will go, well, in this situation, it didn't work that way. And it's like, oh, okay, we have to go back to the drawing board. That's why it takes so much time to develop products. But when I'm testing pads, I've always said a DA or a long stroke DA cuts faster than a rotary. And the reason I can affirm that, first of all, mathematics, it's very easy to calculate. But secondly, my testing is not by hand. I have a machine that I put the pad on. The pad goes up against a pre-measured piece of steel that has paint on it, and we weigh it. So we know how much material we're removing, not by measuring paint thickness, because that's very inaccurate. We're actually weighing the panel before and after. And that weight tells us exactly how much paint we've removed from that panel. And so it's very easy to say that, yes, using a 25 millimeter stroke DA with the gold standard compound, the wool pad, is going to remove this much material versus the same situation with the rotary. Basically, I have what looks like a drill press set up, and that drill press, what it does is I have different heads for it. So I've got a 25 millimeter head, I've got a rotary head, I've got a 21 millimeter head, et cetera, that I can put on that drill press, set the pressure so I can adjust the pressure. So I know that the pressure between the pad and that panel is identical every single time. And that's how we do testing. So we come up not only with the products, but sometimes we have to come up with the machines to do the testing too.
And with the gold standard compound, for example, because that's a more recent product that came out, the geodesic abrasives, that was a new thing. Like, how do you get these ideas, Ivan, for your new formulas?
So the geodesic abrasive was brought to us by the abrasive company. So like I said, when new technologies evolve, we're made aware of them by our suppliers. And the supplier said, hey, I've got this new abrasive. This is what it can do. Do you want to try it? So yes. And when we say we buy an abrasive, it's a powder. That's what we get. We start with a powder, and then we have to build the formula from there. So the gold standard compound, it uses the geodesic abrasive, but it also uses a gel instead of a normal regular suspension or emulsion of waters and oils. So that's why you never need to shake it up. It's always going to stay constant. It's not going to dry out on you. Of course, if you leave the cap open, it's going to dry out, but it works very quickly because of the way it works. And that abrasive size, so the abrasive itself is one thing, then we have to determine what abrasive size we're using. So we started off our testing with an 8 micron, which was way too aggressive. We tried a 6, that was too aggressive. Well, not too aggressive, but very aggressive, but didn't finish well. So now we've ended up with a mix of 6 and 4.5 micron abrasives in that formula. The two sizes play well with each other, giving you great cut, but at the same time, an acceptable finish. You're not, for me, I don't suggest it be used as a one step, because if you look at the paint with light, you're going to see that there's a bit of hazing there, whether you're using a rotary or a DA. But it makes the next step very easy. And another thing we do in research and development is make sure that all our chemicals are compatible with each other within a certain range, meaning that no, we're not going to be testing interior clean and protect with water spot remover, because those are two areas that are completely different. But the compound has to be compatible with the polish. The polish has to be compatible with app. The polish has to leave nothing behind on the surface, and so does the compound. So those are all things we have to consider. We know that our process is, fairly simple, fairly established. We start by washing the car, whether it be rinseless or incredible suds. Then we go to iron remover with the decontamination towel. Then we go to water spot remover, tar remover if necessary, or in our case, tree sap remover. It's great for tar and adhesive as well. It's just by calling it a tree sap remover, it's actually a little bit of what's the word, subterfuge, I think. Anyways,
gymnastics, word gymnastics.
Yeah. So regulatory gymnastics. That's a good way of putting it, Nick. Basically, same chemicals, same SDS sheet. Call it a tar remover. The regulators around the world look at it very differently than if you call it a tree sap remover, even though they're reading the same SDS sheet. So that's just why we call it tree sap remover. But we know that after that decontamination step, then we go into polishing. And do you start with a compound? Do you start with a polish? What pads you use, et cetera, et cetera. That's determined. Then we go to the panel prep or C6 app. Then we go to coating. And that whole system has to work together because not everyone uses it the way we teach, and that's fine. Some people will use the water spot remover before the iron remover. Some people will just spray the iron remover on and let it dwell. And speaking of the iron remover, and you're just spraying it on and letting it dwell, very ineffective use of the product. But with the type 3 iron remover, if you're doing it that way, if you want to do it that way, dilute it 1-to-1. You don't need to use it straight in that context. But the way we teach to use it with the decontamination towel makes it a lot more effective because now you're only using maximum 2 sprays per panel. So 1 on the towel, 1 on the panel, match them up, and you're good to go. But if you're spraying, 4 or 5, how many sprays would you normally put on a door, Nick?
I don't know, 20.
Okay, yeah. So if you're putting a lot of sprays on the door, you can dilute it 1-to-1. It's still going to work great. It's not going to work as effectively as how we've designed it to work within our system with the decontamination towel, but it is going to do the job.
I think it's fascinating about products. We were talking about this before the podcast. There are a lot of companies out there, because listen, if your product doesn't work, if someone tries the product and they don't get the result they want, they're not going to use it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of companies out there who make very, very strong chemicals that work. So you're going to get a result from it. You're like, oh, this thing's awesome. But right. The problem is they're so strong sometimes that they can damage paint or plastics. And I guess the question I have is, how do you make chemicals like ours that work exceptionally well that don't mess things up? Because to me, I feel like that's where the R&D really shines, and you won't notice the product's going to ruin something until it does. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's a big whoopsie. It's going to cost me a lot as a detailer, or I'm an enthusiast. I don't really know how to fix this stuff. Because as a detailer, sometimes you know how to fix the whoopsies because we have a lot of experience. But again, people are just wanting to trust the chemical will work and not damage things. How do you find that needle in the haystack? It works well, but it doesn't damage things, kind of chemistry?
So quality of ingredients, an example, a CAS number, and the CAS number is the standardized number for a certain chemical. And we use water. So water has a CAS number. But if you're using your tap water in Idaho or Utah, if you're using your tap water in Utah, I'm using my tap water in Quebec, or we have one of our manufacturing facilities that's in Illinois. We have one in Texas. We have one in New York, etc. If they all use different water, all the chemicals are going to react differently. That's why we specify that they use distilled water and not deionized and not RO, but actually distilled water in our formulas. That way we know that the water is the same everywhere. It has the same pH. It has 0 minerals in it, et cetera, et cetera. But someone at home mixing a chemical, like I said, your water is very different than mine. When we go to Omaha, the water that we have in the studio that's behind Nick there has a pH close to 9. The pH is actually higher than the chemicals we're putting in it a lot of the time. Incredible Suds has a pH of 8.5. Legally, tap water can be anywhere between 6 and 9. In Omaha, in that section of Omaha, it's very high pH and very high mineral content. We're at a TDS of around 500. That affects how a chemical works. And when we're doing the testing, we need to know that. But when we're developing the product, we also need to know that it's going to be used with that type of water. And it's also going to be used with RO water and distilled water and deionized water, whatever the person is using. So the chemicals have to do that. And yes, it's very easy. It's very cheap to develop a strong chemical that's going to do the job, but it also might introduce a lot of unnecessary risks. An example, you can use wheel acid all over the paint on a car instead of water spot remover. But wheel acid is going to damage the paint, and it's going to damage you. And there's a good chance it's going to damage the plastics. And if it gets behind some trim somewhere and isn't rinsed out properly, it's going to do damage. So there are things that you can use, like I say, that wheel acid, super strong. Yes, it's going to do the job, but at what risk? Whereas with the water spot remover, part of our testing with all of our chemicals is to spray them on a vehicle, a black vehicle, in direct sunlight, and leave them there for at least 24 hours and then see if they rinse away. And all of our chemicals that are supposed to do that. Now, I'm not saying ceramic coating. No, that's not going to do that. But our soap, our rinseless, our water spot remover, our tree sap remover, our iron remover, they're all very safe to spray on a vehicle, let them dry, and rinse them away. We're not telling you to do that. We're not suggesting you do that. But if by accident that happens, it's not going to be a concern. I'll step back on my my wheel acid soapbox for a second, but wheel acids were developed in a time that we had chrome wheels and we had stainless steel hubcaps. That's what people were cleaning with those. They weren't cleaning clear coated wheels. They weren't cleaning today's wheels that we have with powder coated finishes, clear coat. Some have plastic components on the wheels now. Some are even carbon fiber wheels. And the brake components were different at the day. Back then we had drum brakes. Today you have carbon discs, and those carbon discs and wheel acids really don't mix well. So wheel acid is something that, the vehicle has evolved way past the wheel acid. The wheel acid should have gone away from the detailing regime, but it's still there. There's still people making wheel acid because yes, it's effective. Yes, it gets the job done, but at what cost? It's actually damaging the vehicle.
So what else do you want folks to know about R&D, Ivan?
R&D is a slow process. R&D is a lot of fun because I get to test out a lot of products, and sometimes it's extremely frustrating. There's one product I've been working on since 2019, so 6 years now, that we're on the cusp of getting there, but it's still not there. It still requires a bit of work. It might be another year or a year or two before we get it on the market, but it's something that doesn't exist in the marketplace at all. So that's one of the fun things of R&D. An example are polishers. You saw the first prototypes of the polisher that I had. Those were handmade. They weren't, it wasn't a cookie cutter thing that's like, oh, we'll slap our sticker on it. No, our cord-free polishers are literally our own polishers. They were, handmade by me, the original prototypes. And when I say handmade, it's taking a sheet of plastic and heating it and bending it to make the case. It's, little things like that. So it really adds up over time, and it takes a lot of time to do that stuff. And luckily I'm passionate about it, and I find it fun to do. Therefore, that's why I can spend 10, 12 hours a day doing R&D. But at the same time, for a lot of people, a lot of companies, they don't have the knowledge to do the R&D. They don't have that background to do the R&D, and they sub it out to someone else. And when you're subbing it out to someone else and you're paying them $50, $60, $100, $200 an hour, whatever that lab is charging, you want to get it done as quickly as possible. Whereas us, we can take the time. You test products, I test products. Generally, I'm the first round of testing. And when it gets to a point where I think it's good to send out, that's when we send it out to our testers. That's when you get to try it. So a lot of times Nick doesn't know what I'm working on, but eventually he does. And then it's like, oh, tried it. It's great. Works in Utah. I'm happy. Or you'll come up with a change for it that's like, oh, wow, never thought of that. That's why we put it in front of, several people, to make sure that one person's vision shouldn't be the only vision that we get on a product. It needs to be dispersed. It needs to have feedback from all these people.
Yeah, because it's different processes, different climates, different lenses. It's just, you can have blinders on if it's just you. But I like that you have all these controls set up in place. Anything else you do with R&D, Ivan, that might surprise people?
It's like I say, it just takes a lot of time, and I'm always trying to find a way to make it easier for our customers, to make it safer for our customers, to make it faster, to make it more fun. Example, we had a concern with the Type 1 Incredible Suds that it was too thick. And by the way, we also use, with the Incredible Suds, we use focus groups. So we get a bunch of people together in a room, we ask them questions about products, blah, blah, blah. Everyone in that first focus group that we did, we want a thick soap. The thicker, the better. It was unanimous. We came out with a really thick soap.
Yeah.
What was the one complaint we had about it? It was too thick.
It was a little too thick, yeah.
Right. But it took a lot of work to dial back that thickness and still have the concentration that we have. I was at a meet and greet this weekend at TOC Supplies, and a gentleman came up to me and said, I'd like to use your soap, but it's too expensive. Well, when I showed him, walked him around the showroom and pointed out the dilution ratios of all the different companies that they sell, not one was close to ours. So when you calculate cost per use, ours was by far the least expensive soap in the place. Even though they have some soaps that are sold for $20 a gallon, it was more expensive to use that $20 a gallon soap than it was our soap. So it becomes we need to do education to show people, hey, there's such a thing as cost per use, not just cost of purchase. Our iron remover, it's another great example. You used to do 10 or 20 sprays on a panel. Now we do 22, 24 sprays on a car to do the whole car. So yes, our iron remover may be a little more expensive than the budget brand out there, but at the same time, you can dilute it 1-to-1 if you're wanting to spray it. So that cuts the cost in half. And if you use it the way we teach, you use less than an ounce to do a whole car instead of half a 16-ounce bottle or a full 16-ounce bottle like some people do.
I can assure you that having feelings and emotions is a part of life and a part of detailing. But when it comes to detailing, Ivan, your approach is very logical. How can I spend the least amount of time getting the most results? I mean, you have the mind of an entrepreneur, but you're not selling things that don't work. Yeah. But like these products work. That's why when I hear people go on these rants about how these different soaps do different things and all that, it's overcomplicated. I'm just like, Incredible Suds, rinse, Incredible Suds, contact wash. I don't need any other soaps. This soap works very well, but people want to tell me that you need a pre-wash, and it's like, I don't know how many cars we've done with the foam rinse foam with just Incredible Suds. It's like, because you see the nuance in it, and the different formulations might work a little bit better at doing this versus that, right? But like, you're just trying to save people time and give them efficacy in the process.
Yeah. I have two qualities in life. I'm cheap and I'm lazy. Therefore, I'm efficient and I'm profitable. And that's what I want people to understand is that detailing, yes, you can go down the rabbit hole and use a soap for a pre-foam and then one for the bucket and one for the foam cannon and one.
But you better have three foam cannons because you're going to need three different foamings in the process. So now I have to have three foam cannons, all with different products that I'm all going to have to clean out at the end to rinse with water so the acidic one doesn't mess my foam cannon up. Anyway, continue on.
Yeah, and we have it on our bottles, the panel impact ratio, which to me is put as much soap as you need to make it fun or to get the thickness of suds that you want. But our dilution ratio for Incredible Suds is 1,000-to-1. And at 1,000-to-1 in your bucket, you're going to get luxurious suds. It's going to be safe. It's going to do exactly what it needs to do. And you're not using a lot of soap. 1,000-to-1, just so you know, is half an ounce in 4 gallons of water or 15 milliliters in 16 liters of water or 15 liters of water. So that's not a lot of soap to do that amount of work, but it's super concentrated. And that's why it has the thickness that it has. But at the same time, my R&D process is, first of all, does the product work? Does it do what we say it will do? And that is something that no company can work around. If you say it's going to do X and it only does B or C, then you've got a problem. But we say it does X and it does X exactly the way we show how to use it. And some companies, they stop the R&D there. Oh, it does that. Great. They don't look at the potential consequences. Having been not only in R&D, but in the forward facing part of the detailing industry for a long time, I also know the errors that some people can make. And sometimes they're involuntary, like you accidentally mix two products, or you thought you heard somewhere that this was the way it was supposed to be done, but that's not what they meant, et cetera, because there's a lot of YouTubers out there putting out a lot of great content, but some of it sometimes is questionable as to their process and how they do things. Or they'll say, well, I use this brand and I mix it with this brand in this container and I shake it a certain way.
They're doing R&D, Ivan. Come on now.
Yeah, they're doing R&D.
You can't be the only one who does R&D.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Don't take away their fun.
No, and it can be fun sometimes, but sometimes it can be dangerous to do that. And you don't know what the consequences are. You may create a very dangerous chemical or off gas from mixing those two products that you don't know because they're from two different companies. And that company, company A and company B never speak to each other and they don't cross R&D everybody else's products. So that is something that in the R&D process, we try to eliminate as many potential errors as possible. So having known what a lot of the errors that this industry is habitually makes, and also that accidentally makes, we try to do that. An example, go back to the water spot remover. We spray it on a car and let it sit until either it rains or we rinse it off a week later. And then we inspect to see if it caused any damage. And it doesn't. But there's a lot of iron removers out there. If you let them sit that long, they are going to do damage to the vehicle. So, but that company, they did their R&D to the level that they want to do the R&D, which means they sprayed it on the car. They saw it bleed red. It was good. They rinsed it off. It didn't damage the car, but they didn't let it dry in the car. They didn't let it bake on the car, on a black car in the sun for 1 week. They just, it was safe the way we teach how to use it. Not thinking of how people go outside of those suggestions and decide to do it their own way. And sometimes their own way can cause damage.
Yes, it can. Ivan, we're about 30 minutes on this podcast.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts in the R&D process? I know it never ends, and so there's probably lots to say.
There's a lot to say. No, it never ends. And speaking of that, if you have any product suggestions, if you have anything that you feel could be an improvement on what we're doing, our products, etc., please leave it in the comments. We answer every comment, and we do that out of respect for our viewers. A lot of you, when you take the time to comment, it's the least we can do to take the time to respond to your questions. So that's what we do out of respect for everyone watching us. If you're subscribed, thank you. If you're not subscribed, and more than half the people watching us are not subscribed. So please, it's very easy. That little subscribe button, give it a hit, maybe a thumbs up, maybe some hype points. That's up to you. You only have so many videos you can hype in a week, but follow along. We're always improving. We're always getting better. And every video we teach something new. We've done, I don't know how many wash videos, and we always get comments. It's like, every time I watch your videos, I learn something new. It's because we're always learning as well.
And I think part of the R&D process is you continually traveling around the country and talking to detailers and teaching detailers and doing meet and greets, because every time you do that, people ask you questions and you know what people are asking about. And that helps inform the direction we go, because it's like, these are questions from you. I see it, I feel it, I hear it, right? So it's from the YouTube comments, and then you getting in person with folks all over the continent. I mean, you're seeing what is coming up, and that sort of helps us, in the development of products. So the R&D process is multifaceted. We hope this was a nice peek behind the curtain. We'll have more podcasts about other things as well, but this is one of those where we're like, hey, we just want folks to know this is kind of how things happen, at least at DIY Detail. Yeah.
Excellent. And with that, see you in the next one. But is there a video they could watch?
Oh my gosh, is there a video they should watch? It's right here, Ivan. Enjoy.